Okay, just got, don't have much to go through today. On public holiday in the UK and the US, it's going to be a very quiet session today anyway, so nothing too exciting going on. Anyway, someone emailed me through Aussie Swiss. They tried to send an attachment. The attachment didn't work. I don't know what the attachment was. I can show you. You're trying to send me your analysis, but it looks like this, which the Aussie Swiss from the 23rd doesn't really not beat. Anyway, also in the email, he said the alert came from the live trading floor. And so you placed his first order. I confirmed the rules you mentioned in the course and it looked okay to me, and I attached the copy in my notes. I would, whilst it's okay to be trading income generators, I don't have a problem with that. I would be turning those alerts off if I was you from the live trading floor. I don't want you to get caught up with what other people think. And the live trading floor is what some of the coaches, well, all of the coaches have to, those who do individual coaching have to make these trade calls a couple of times a week. And therefore it's their trading decision, it's not yours. You can look at the income generator as a supportive role for your trade, but I want you doing the analysis well and truly before these set up. And the Aussie Swiss was setting up. We're getting higher highs and higher lows. There was a potential trade there on Friday, or an order could be placed, just as the Euro Aussie, which is similar to the Aussie Swiss, the very high correlation. And I'd prefer you doing your own analysis, and then if you get, if you look at the income generator and it says, hey, there's a trade here as well, then by all means go for it. There was an alert that came out for this thing to sell this Aussie dollar, whilst technically or fundamentally I'd want to sell the Aussie dollar, technically not at this point. We're you're at the bottom end of the momentum, and it hasn't broken through the significant low yet, so I would be leaving this alone for the time being until it makes up its mind where it wants to go, and at this stage it hasn't made that decision. So these trade alerts can be useful for those who don't understand the markets or technical analysis. Those income generators and things that you get out of eSignal can be helpful for you in making a trading decision. But I prefer you to be making the decision yourself and using those as support, if that makes any sense to you. Okay, then we've got Euro Kiwi analysis. Fibonacci retracement, yep. Horizontal support, yeah. I've got a checklist here somewhere. Let's have a look. Lower highs and lower lows, yeah. Below MA horizontal, $1.59.99, yeah, $1.60. Nice round number. Also divergence. Across here. Well, if that's if you're considering that's one cycle, then that's two cycles. Then you should be drawing your Fibonacci from there as well. Okay, but you've got your Fibonacci going across here, so then there's no hidden divergence. If I presume you're swing high. If that's what I mean, you've got hidden divergence there. So if you're going to claim this is the last cycle and we've got divergence from it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but then do your Fibonacci from there as well. So you're saying, well, there's hidden divergence there, and you would be right. And if this is the last cycle, then that's where your Fib is. Okay, and so personally, I'll be looking at this as this is cycle 1, yeah, and this is cycle 2. But there's nothing wrong with saying, well, this is cycle 1, cycle 2. I just don't see this 2 bars as a major sort of retracement, and considering that this low didn't break that low, it's not really a true cycle. So I would say this is the cycle, and therefore there's no hidden divergence. But that's the way I look at things. What you've done is perfectly valid, but you just got to make sure that your analysis matches the same cycle. Okay, if that makes sense. That's brilliant advice, David. I tend not to take notice of the trade alerts, but have been thinking of looking at the IGs as a test, possibly going in with an IG if I've missed a trade. Okay. My own rules for the IG are very strict, so I hardly make any an IGs trade. Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad you're along that line of thinking. Okay, so this Euro Kiwi, it's all good, but yeah, just make sure that if you're looking at that cycle, which I don't have a problem with you doing that, just make sure the fib's on the same one. So yeah. So this is what I want you to look at is saying, here's the cycle. This is what I'm looking at. This is the reason for my trade, and you're sort of jumping across 2 cycles to you know, saying, well, there's one cycle, but hang on a minute, for this cycle I've got this support. So it's a bit like saying, well, you know, I don't have hidden divergence in stochastics, but I'll use RSI, or I don't have it in RSI, but I'll use stochastics. So you know, you're saying that it's there by saying, well, it's this cycle here. So just be a little conscious of that, if you could. Are you online, by the way, mate? No, you're not. Okay. Alright, so that's the Euro Kiwi. Yep. Then you also sent me the Euro Aussie, and this is there's an interesting one here. Hidden divergence from the last cycle. Don't know if that's the case. Again, that's the start of your last cycle. Then RSI's will be line ball call. Fib retracement 618. We've got this horizontal 48.75. Okay. Yeah. Now the thing with this one is people will be asking, not that they have yet, but that's all good, mate. Appreciate that. Cool. People will be asking, do you leave your order in? And I want to raise the difference between the Aussie Swiss and the Euro Aussie. They are both very highly correlated pairs. However, you'll notice that Friday's bar on the Aussie Swiss is a test bar, so you've got 2 test bars in a row. Would you leave your order in there for that particular scenario is the question. Or when you're coming to look at the Euro Aussie, even though they're highly correlated, Friday's bar is not a test bar. Thursday's was, yes. Friday's bar, not necessarily. It was a inside bar only just, but it is a seller bar. So not a test bar. So very different to Aussie Swiss is the Euro Aussie. And so I wouldn't necessarily say, well, you know, we're getting that shift in momentum back into the direction of the trade. I wouldn't necessarily say it at this stage. In this one, you might look at it going, well, let's have a look at the lower time frame. I'm waiting for a cycle above the EMA on that. And whereas this one, you still got the sellers there, so there's a valid reason for us to leave the order in at this point in time. Can you see the clear difference there? I hope you can, between the Euro Aussie Friday's bar, which is a seller bar, to the Aussie Swiss, which is also a seller bar when we're looking for buyers. Yeah, so just be aware of that, and that's the thing I wanted to discuss with those two. So that's about it. I've got someone else who's also looking at these 2 pairs. Also, obviously, the other thing that you need to be considerate of is that your risk when you're trading both of these, the Euro Aussie and the Aussie Swiss, they are very similar, highly correlated. So if one fails, it's more than likely the other one will too. Maybe not at the exact same time, but not far from each other in terms of time and price. What have we got here? Lower highs, below, finding resistance of MA, yes. Horizontal resistance, yeah, bearish price action. That should also be highlighted yellow because it's a must-have. Levels of support, there's nothing in the way. Fib retracement, you've drawn the fib correctly. And was there a trend line if you'd link these up? Can't remember. Don't think so. Yeah, it was. So there's another thing you could have added on the list. Yeah. Was there horizontal? Yeah, see that divergence is, I think, pretty borderline. So that's 65, that's 64.8. I'm sorry if I added that point. Yeah, 64.8. That's pretty borderline divergence. Not sort of clear divergence. So that's good. Yeah, just trend line. You gave it a 0 when, if you linked those up, you could have got that in there. The high test on the Aussie Swiss causes reassessment. Yes. Yeah. That is. With the Euro Aussie, looks like one of them, the weekly, is at the beginning of news phase 1. Will this make a difference to how you view this pair if you're going? Okay, let me just finish this last chart, and I'll come to the questions on the line. And see, yeah, you've got the trend line on this one, and they're both highly correlated. So you got the fib correctly, so that's all good. Just don't know why I didn't put the trend line on the Euro Aussie as well when you could have. And the other thing I want you to be aware is that this is the same trade. So I hope it doesn't tell me what sort of amount of risk you're putting on there, but I hope you're sort of doing about half, sort of maximum half of 1% on each, more likely 1/4% on each. Okay, so Euro Aussie, the question was, the weekly chart, will this affect my trading decision? Not really. I look at the weekly more for horizontal support and resistance lines, or looking at Fibonacci levels. So you might draw this and say, is there a big support or resistance in the way of the trade? And we're hanging around the 61.8. I should be getting, that's 47.30. We're 47.44. Come back to the daily. And that's about where I'm trying to get into the trade, underneath that support line. Yes, it does look like it's cycling nicely, and you could argue that there's those who are trading the weekly, you might be looking at getting your entry in here and your stops here and going, and that's the direction of your trade, which is interestingly enough where my stop loss is anyway for my daily. So that could be an argument if you're trading the weekly that that's where you're looking to enter the trade. And at that stage, I'd be wrong. But the other thing I look at the weekly for is support resistance lines, either eyeballing them like this or using Fibonacci. The other thing is there a trend? And making sure that there is a trend in the daily and going with that. For example, there's probably not you wouldn't say in here that there's really a trend in the daily, sorry, in the weekly, and therefore you're not going to get a daily trend that's going to really occur all that well. Similarly around here, there's very little going on, and this high bar on a weekly means that there's sweet bugger all happening on the daily, and you can see that there. So that's what I look at the weekly for. Aussie Swiss, I see two test bars. I see the two test bars. On a different currency pair on Friday, you said that if the buyers were in control, then the higher the low test bar would be taken out. Yep. And then the trade would be worthwhile. Well, the difference is that when I said that, this bar hadn't finished, and I was suggesting that if this bar came up and took out the high, then that'd be all worthwhile. The fact that it's failed as an inside bar and then it was dominated by the sellers gives me pause to think. You could look at it and say, well, if it gets up here, then the buyers are there. And I'd say, well, yes, that would be the case. But you're then presented with something that's highly correlated and probably better trade is the Euro-Aussie. And we had the looking for sellers, and we got the sellers. Yes, they weren't strong enough to complete us and get us into the trade on Friday. But there's certainly the sellers are still there. Had this been a buyer bar, then I would have gone, well, I might think about that, but about taking that trade. But here I've got two highly correlated trades. They look very similar, except for the Aussie Swiss we're looking for buyers and we got sellers. Euro Aussie, we're looking for sellers and we got them. Not at the and so can you see the difference there? There's obviously not the sellers that we wanted in terms of the pressure of making a newer low, but they're still there. Whereas the Aussie Swiss are looking for buyers and didn't get that. Yes, you could look at going in there again if you wanted, but you're now presented with two opportunities, either taking this trade if it goes in there or taking the Euro Aussie if it goes under here. And this one, the Euro Aussie, seems to me a bit stronger because you've got the sellers there. That's where I was coming from. I hope that you got it? Perfect. Thanks. Cool. I hope that makes sense to everybody else. Apart from that, the only other thing I'm looking at is the dollar yen. I took this trade, trying to do a range trade. We'll see how that goes. And the CAD yen I like. I missed this on Friday. I wasn't watching. I missed it, damn it. But I like to be long CAD, and there was an opportunity on the hourly that I clearly missed in here. Break above the retest it on Friday afternoon, which was Friday afternoon. Yeah, it's a little disappointing to miss that, but now looking for it to give me another opportunity at some stage later, maybe tonight or this week. Yeah, because I have been sort of buying this a couple of times across here, trying to get that lift off out of this tight range that it's in. It really is literally about 120 pip range if you look at it. You say across here 94.15 to well, almost 200 pip range, but that's not much considering that we could be getting back up to here. Anyway, that's something I'm watching. And here's again, there's no clear trend in this, and you can see that that's not happening in the daily. So anyway, that's it for the day, guys. 20 minutes. Nice early, quiet start to the week. We do have some holidays tonight in the US and the UK, so it's going to be a pretty quiet old session. And then what do we have later in the week? I haven't even looked what's going on later in the week. Japanese on Friday. Yeah, pretty quiet week of full stop. I think the FOMC will be coming up soon though. Maybe that's next week. There's non-farm payrolls. Anyway, CAD yen, is this totally FOMO now or still worth well, if you're looking at the data daily, it's getting pretty close to being FOMO. It's you're almost at the other end of this tight range. So yeah, it is getting close to being FOMO. I'd like to see what the 4-hour does. That's the one I'll be watching. See if I can get a retest of this area here, and then maybe taking that. Yeah, so it is a bit FOMO trading a daily, but we're not yet overdone. There's still room with the upside, and you might be testing this, and if you can get a decent entry on the 4 hour, then you might get a reasonable trade out of it. Can you clarify the CAD yen would be an hourly trade, not daily? I'd be, as I said, I'd be looking at this. I missed it on the hourly on Friday afternoon. I'm too busy watching rugby, silly me. And this was, so now I've missed it on the hourly. I'll be looking at the 4 hourly, waiting, as I said, waiting for a pullback to test these highs here, these lows, and see what there is in terms of see what there is in terms of any sort of buying support around that 61.8, which is quite interestingly happens to be that level there. So time will tell. And if it does break through and start going up on the daily, then I won't FOMO trade it. I'll just say be more vigilant next time, idiot. You believe that so I've mentioned in my report that the dollar yen, don't be fooled by the daily bar. Can you please explain what I meant by that? I don't recall saying that on the daily, on the dollar yen. Did I say that on the dollar yen? Was that on Friday that I said that? I don't recall saying that on Friday. I do remember saying something about the Aussie, and it's saying don't be fooled into buying the Aussie on this test bar. I remember saying that on the Aussie dollar. Yeah. Why did I say that? Well, the biggest reason is because it failed to make a higher high. So this cycle is the first signal that things are breaking down. And fundamentally, I believe the Aussie should be lower. Now that the momentum's overdone, it's probably just going to chop around here for a bit before it works that momentum higher, but up towards the 50 level. Might even go and test these lows here around 93.30. But there's going to be nothing substantial in any buying action on this at the moment. So, once it works the oversold off, we'll go and test these lows and break the structural low, and then that this little up run will be all over, and we'll be heading down to have another look at sort of the lower 88s. Time will tell if I was right, but that's why I said that. It's because mainly this high didn't breach that high, and from a fundamental point of view. No, it wasn't. Yeah, there was obviously this is a test bar, yeah, but you've got bearish, and it's still a lower high, lower low. And yeah, it did test this previous low here, and then before the buyer stepped in. But one bar doesn't make a change of trend, and this bar might have sort of given you a little ray of hope, on Friday. You might have gone, well, maybe. And I think I wrote this on Thursday when this bar was out, not necessarily Friday. When this bar completed on Wednesday, I wrote about it. And as I said, one bar doesn't change a trend, so you're not going to sort of try and go against this quite decent selling. You can see that bearish, and the fact that it failed to make a higher high, I think would have been a silly trade to try and take that. would I consider the Aussie as a triple bottom and a range trade? You're talking about this bottom, this bottom, and this bottom. Look, you could. The moving averages are certainly indicating that there's very little, hasn't gone very far over the last 50 bars or the last, even the last 200 bars, which is, 200 bars is almost a year, so probably too much. A year ago, literally was a year ago, we were back here. We haven't gone anywhere in a year. So, yeah, in that sense, you could look at that, and there's minor divergence there. It'd be, I think we discussed this last week as in terms of being able to find your Fibonacci extensions, and therefore you'd go and look at something like, well, I can't get extensions, is there any other sort of Fibonacci that this might be reacting to? And you go, well, lo and behold, there's the 50 off that move. So you could say, well, I've got my Fibonacci support for the trade. Yes, you could look at that. I think that's probably a low probability idea, but that's because my fundamental view is that we're going further south, and if they can't get the budget through, then they run the risk of losing AAA credit rating, and Labor will laugh their arse off like that if after having 7 or 8 budget deficits and being threatened and of losing the AAA rating, the Liberals get to lose it. Anyway. There's that, there's that risk, and that's going to put some pressure on the Aussie as well. Okay, so it's not that bad. Thanks, David. Have a good day. We're getting an Indian summer here in Queensland. Yeah, I heard that it's quite warm down under. On the weekly chart, if there's no strong horizontal line, do you take notice of 50 EMA as support? No. I'm really not looking at the moving averages in terms of sometimes the 200 maybe, but not really. When I'm looking at the weekly, I tend to ignore those moving averages, and I'm just looking at price action and seeing where the turning points are, horizontal support and resistance lines, maybe sometimes trend lines, but certainly horizontals and Fibonacci's is all I use the weekly for. Right. Are the UK and US public holidays likely to produce small range movements today? Yes. Yeah, mainly because there will be people like to see what those two big the big boys are doing, and London and New York is where where the major financial institutions are. You might get a bit of activity on the yen out of Tokyo because that's probably the third largest financial city. Singapore, you'd probably say Singapore and Hong Kong are 4 and 5 respectively. Frankfurt comes in there as well. Excuse me, but yeah, the big boys are certainly out of the market today, so there'll be little interest. A bit of a catch-up tomorrow. Could be. Who knows? Depends what if there's any major news out overnight, which there isn't. Or Draghi's talking in Europe, but what I say by news is some geopolitical tensions or natural disaster or anything like that. If that happens to come out overnight, then yes, there'll be big catch-up. But no, I wouldn't have thought that any major moves on Tuesday just because there's nothing on today. Just treat each day as it comes. CAD yen, wouldn't you say it's stuck in a range? Yes, but I'm thinking because it's stuck in the range, a bit like the pound CAD, and your mate Rob knows all about the pound CAD. The more it's stuck, the longer it's stuck in this type of range, that then the move out of it will be quite impressive. I'm not going to say it's very explosive, but it should be impressive, and that's what I'm trying to capture. And I have been, I bought it here, and I bought it in here, and I don't think I bought it in here, but I've been waiting for it to get out of this range, because I originally thought that the original range was, this is the original range I was looking at. There's your lower end of the range, and there's the top end of the range, and I was looking at buying it in here a couple of times, and it never got there. And now we've got a new range, which is across here in this sort of instance. And if you look at it, you could even say, well, that's even tightened up more now. And so the more it tightens up and the longer it doesn't go anywhere, then the move will be impressive. And so that's what I'm waiting for and trying to position myself for. What news to be wary of this week? Well, mate, have a look at your calendar. I don't think there's much out this week. I sort of ran through the calendar briefly. Swiss yen. Weekly is a beautiful low test, but I can't get the prop checklist to justify daily entry. Am I trying to force it? Swiss yen. To me, I'd say there's probably still some more selling left in this if you're just looking at it as on the weekly. I know there's people looking at this as the trading a phase 2 trade yesterday. Oh, sorry, last week. Yeah, you got the nice bounce off the 2. There's no real strong horizontal on this though. Compared to say the euro yen, I think there was a horizontal. And there was, no real minor, there's no real divergence here. Oh, yeah, there is divergence. I mean, it's 12 versus 9, and you're certainly getting lower. So you've got Class A divergence there. The only thing was that there wasn't really any major support line here for the price to be bouncing off. My data doesn't go back long enough. If you can find, I think someone mentioned the 70s. There was a bit of a support line here back in the 70s. And you'd say, well, that's pretty much deteriorated a bit like my sort of liver over since the 70s. There's no, it's not strong enough to get in, and you're probably right on that. But if this is going to be going back, you'd look at the 4 hour and go, well, let's get a cycle above the 50, and maybe I'll try get in on that that action and see how we go. But there's no real nothing on the daily to warrant a trade, I didn't think. Does it make sense? CAD yen is in a range, then if it breaks out of a range, it is a bonus. But you still got to, it's got to break the range and then come back and retest it. And so, if this is the range, you've got to get over there and retest it, and then you're taking it. All right. And you're not just trading it on the break. As I said, I prefer to be positioning myself from the lower end of it. And I should have been watching this, but I missed it. And then missed it again on Friday. There was an opportunity here, and then there's an opportunity here on the daily, and then there's 2 opportunities on the hourly, and I still missed it. So had I been in there, then or one of these ones, then I'd be sitting pretty and waiting for it to do whatever it wanted to do, but it hasn't done that yet. So CAD yen is ranging on the high side of the range. Well, you would suggest that across here you got these there's resistance there. You got and we get, whilst momentum is not overdone like here, it's certainly getting up there to the sort of areas where before it turned around, so you'd say it was certainly on the top end rather than the lower end. Can you assume that is therefore break on the high side? Yeah, look, I would presume that it's going to break on the top side. That's because I want to be long the cat, and you know the yen is certainly not going to be strengthening unless there's you know, further political tensions, but you know they're all dissipating as well. So you know, I fundamentally want to be long the loonie and trying to buy it at every opportunity. You know, so that's. But you need to have the technical reasons to get the entry, and there's nothing there at the moment. It's FOMO trading if you're taking it, and so you need to wait for a break and the retest of that level and then take the trade. Back to the Swiss yen, no support anywhere, so yeah, leave it alone, get the trend happening on the daily, and that will happen when the 4-hour breaks above and comes back and does a cycle above the EMA. You'll have the trend starting on the daily, and you can participate in it. Alright guys, geez, I spent more time just rambling than I have going through your analysis. So if there's no strong support because price has never been up there, you can only trade with the trend. Absolutely. Very good point. If you're never been up here before, let's say, you know, this, never been here before, like the Aussie dollar, if you get back up to $1.10, if you've never been there before, you do not trade against the trend. No bloody way would you do it. For obvious reasons, you don't have a strong horizontal, and two, you don't know, you've never been there before. I would just leave it the hell alone and just go with the trend. And just keep going with the trend. Absolutely. Is it too late for Euro Yen phase 2? Do you want me to go through every single currency? No. Euro Yen phase 2. Well, what do you think? Look at that. Would you be trading that? You would have been placing your order to go in there, trying to trade against this trend, then get a lower high, lower low. Yes, it's a buyer bar, but you know, only on phase 1 would you consider that kind of entry. If you just took us, if we just went, why can't I do that? Okay. I'll get really tricky. If you just go like this and say, well, can you guys see that? If you just look at it like that, would you be taking that? Only if that's a phase 1 would you be looking at doing that, not if it's a phase 2. There's not enough buying power there to try and trade against the trend. So short, no. You got triggered in on the Swiss yen. That's a little disappointing. Well, I suppose it's managing it now. You got your stop underneath that. Keep it. Might even, you know, this is a, yeah. It's not. Yeah. Keep your stop under there for this time being. Okay. All right, guys. I shall Wednesday. Yeah. Well, with the holiday tonight, there won't be much. So Wednesday might give us some things to look at. You guys take it easy. I shall see you then.